Today, we're going to be talking about vices. Okay, so what is a vice? By definition, I've written it down. A vice is a moral failing or a bad habit. However, today we're going to be talking about my definition of a vice. I see a vice as kind of an unhealthy distraction. Usually something you're using to dodge something difficult or something painful. It kind of acts as an emotional crutch of some sort. It's usually something fairly hedonistic, something quite temporary, that kind of wards off moments of discomfort or difficult things about life, right? Have I just made that 10 times more complicated? Basically, I see a vice as something you use as a distraction from something that you don't want to face. And it's usually something unhealthy that you're using, right? Something temporary, something that's not really very good for you. The spectrum of vices, however, that we all have vary in severity quite a lot. From illegal activities, harmful, destructive activities, to, a TikTok addiction, social media addiction, drugs, smoking, abusing alcohol, gambling, sex addiction. I think these are the types of things people normally think of when you say it's a vice. You would think of like abusing alcohol or gambling or something. However, I think a vice is anything that's quite hedonistic and temporary, that's not good for you, that you're using to fucking distract yourself from some sort of painful reality. So I would think, maybe a shopping addiction, maybe toxic relationships. Like, I would consider these things to be vices if they're things you regularly kind of lean on as some sort of distraction. If every time your life gets hard, you spend a fuck ton of money, or you go out partying a lot, or you order a fuck ton of stuff, or something like that, I would consider somewhat of a vice. And I guess my question today is, can we live without a vice? Can humans go through their life without having some sort of a vice? And is striving for a vice-free life something we should be doing or not? Does it matter in the scheme of things? Because off the bat, if I had to think, I would say everyone on earth has some sort of a vice. Everyone has something that they do that isn't very good for them, isn't necessarily very healthy, but it's something they fall back on. It's some sort of an emotional crutch. I would think probably everyone on earth has one. I would struggle to think of anyone in my life that's completely vice-free, right? So I did some light research into this, and I found some theories that actually suggest that having a little vice here and there, in the long run, can actually prevent us from doing anything worse, right? It kind of suggests this idea that humans have for centuries been, drawn towards the forbidden fruit, feel like they have to kind of rebel or do something that's not good for them every now and then. It's human nature. And that if you didn't have something, you might end up doing something a lot worse, right? I've seen some theories suggesting this, which is quite interesting. And I saw one study on a website called Equinox. Chasing a vice-free life can actually backfire. And that in turn, for trying to gain more self-control by not doing anything bad and not having a vice, you end up having less because you're wrapping guilt and shame around everything, that it's just going to make you crack and do it more. And I read quite a lot of this study that they did, and basically in a nutshell, it suggests trying to ban yourself from any, vice-like activity or unhealthy behaviors at all doesn't really work long-term for human beings. And that it's all about balance. Kind of this idea that people should do things in moderation, and that it doesn't really do anyone any favors trying to live a really restrictive life. They also wrote, and I quote, "To live a healthy lifestyle is to balance the social, emotional, physical, and cognitive domains. If you look at longevity and the people who have lived the longest, they have a beautiful blend between all four areas. Someone who is very focused on their physical domain might not have quote-unquote bad habits, but doesn't, for example, have a good social support, making them, in turn, not any healthier overall." This again kind of suggests this idea of balance, that bottom line is, in small doses, vices can actually be beneficial. That, for example, going out for a couple glasses of wine with your friends, sure, maybe isn't the best for your physical, but it's so good for you socially, emotionally, even cognitively maybe, that it's going to have near to no effect then on your physical. And it kind of actually has a net positive. It may be negative if overdone, but it's suggesting that it could be more harmful to underdo that, to be too restrictive can often have more of a net negative effect overall. I'm also a believer that in life, something always has to give. There has to be a way to kind of release the pressure or let off steam or whatever quote you want to use, because life is very difficult and there's a lot going on and we all feel quite stressed fairly regularly. And this is what I mean by originally, if I had to guess, I would say everyone has some sort of vice. You know, the people that don't tend to drink much, maybe they smoke. People that don't smoke, maybe they drink. People that eat really well and never have fast food, maybe they go out partying every weekend. You know, people that don't drink or smoke and they eat well, maybe they're glued to their phone half their life. Like, everyone has fucking something, I think. And I do think that that is because something always has to give. You can't do everything without some sort of release. And I don't know, I guess, like, thinking about the morality of vices, I think humans are innately flawed. I think that no matter what you do, no matter how you live your life, you're flawed, start to finish. So it's almost like the human condition to often do the wrong thing or the unhealthy thing or the quicker option. You know, people aren't perfect. I don't think personally that makes anyone a bad person, because I think if you followed that theory, everyone on earth is a bad person because we're all fucking flawed. You know, like I said, obviously it's a massive spectrum. It very much depends, what is your vice? Are you actually, you know, harming people? Is it affecting other people? Like, it so depends what it is. But I do think in general, having a vice, having something like that, it doesn't make you a bad person. Like, that's where I stand. Obviously, this is very subjective. I think it's human, and I think life is very difficult. And I think it's almost, I don't know, I kind of think it's maybe too big of an ask to expect a human being to go through the ups and downs, trials and tribulations of life, which there are many, and not have any sort of fucking vice or emotional crutch. I don't know if anyone is strong enough to do that. Life is very difficult. I do also think there is a lot of merit to the in moderation, you know, in small doses kind of take for this. Because I think, for example, if someone is regularly, you know, everyone has a fairly stressful life, obviously, spectrum again. But if someone's regularly doing something kind of harmless to blow off steam, go out for a couple glasses of wine with a friend, smoke at the end of the day, like, whatever your vice of choice may be, whatever. Obviously, I'm taking out really fucking harmful things. That's not what I'm talking about. Doing these things in small doses like that, it almost, like it said in that study from Equinox, it almost overall has like a net positive effect. Even though the thing you're doing might not be healthy, it kind of keeps you in such a good place and doesn't really harm anything enough that it kind of works, right? But if you didn't, in small doses, let off this steam, and you kind of tried to not let anything give for a long time, not have any vice of any kind, I think it is plausible that you would then go too far the other way, right? If you're like trying to keep it all together all the time, maybe then your once a month going out for a glass of wine would end up with you being fucking smashed, because it's like you then can't control it because it's like such a rarity, you know. And I think a lot of people do go that way. I talked about that in my episode about winter arc, saying that, like, I think for some people, being super kind of disciplined and restrictive can kind of end up with them flipping worse than they were before. Like, and that's kind of what I mean, that I think obviously vices by nature, they're not healthy, they're not good things to have. This is why it's kind of an interesting topic, because it's like, are they, surely then, if they're not good, we should strive to not do them. You know, surely then we should strive to have a vice-free life and just kind of handle things without needing to ever do anything that's bad for us and have any sort of emotional crutch. However, I'm going to be honest, I think, in my opinion, and this obviously may change, honestly, I think if you can find some sort of way to let off that steam that's, sure, on paper, like, probably not great for you, but it in general doesn't really harm anything, I think that's kind of what personally I would aim for, rather than having zero vice or a really fucking bad one. I think personally I would aim, maybe this is shit advice, I don't know, but I would probably aim for something that's like, it lets off the steam a little bit. Maybe it's a little bit like of a bad decision. For example, going out for wine on the weekends, ordering a pizza instead of cooking every weekend, like things that are a little bit like, they're not good for you. They're a bit stupid decisions sometimes, you know, on paper, but you do need to live a little, and you do need to do something that makes you feel like you're fucking relaxed and like blown off that steam. And I think if you can pick silly choices that have that kind of effect and that feeling, but they're not actually affecting anything negatively and they're actually quite harmless, that's kind of the sweet spot, I think. You know, like I said, maybe it's meeting your friends at the pub, smoking for a couple hours with them, having a couple pints, whatever. Sure, not a healthy fucking thing to be doing. However, moderation, like, it's probably better for you to do things like that every now and then than to just try and fucking like head on go through the fucking like stress of life without cutting yourself a break. I do think it's important to give yourself a break, and I think usually the things that give us that aren't technically the best things for us. There's a lot of things that we do that make us feel really good, that are good for us. But this is kind of different, you know? It's kind of finding a way to release that stress in a controlled manner, right? It's kind of like then you can have a vice, but it's kind of harmless. However, it's like then you get the question of when is it harmless? When is it harmful? Again, subjective as fuck. I think going out for a drink every now and then, smoking every now and then, order food when you have food in, playing some video games for a whole evening instead of doing your fucking homework or coursework. Stupid, really, in theory, but however, sometimes you just need to do that. Sometimes you just need to do the thing that you crave and not the thing that you should do all the time. And I know that is shit advice, but I also think it's normal. I think if you do that every now and then, it's fine. Don't live like that. But I think every now and then, if you're like, fuck's sake, like I've been so busy, I've done everything right, I just want to push my responsibilities to the side a minute and go fucking have some wine or go play video games with my friends or like go play darts for 2 hours. I don't know, whatever the fuck you like doing, then do that, However, I think the line, personally, is it like corrupting your health, your life, your relationships? Is it like harming things, genuinely harming your quality of life or people's around you, And also I think, is it something you actually enjoy or is it something you're just addicted to? I think that's a part of it too. If it's actually something that isn't necessarily the best for you, but you find joy in it, actually makes you happy and feel nice. Like, genuinely, I think that's different to just having like some sort of addiction to let off the stress. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of what I mean by like gambling and the stuff like that. It's almost like just purely an addiction. It's not necessarily got the like nice side to it that like going out for some drinks with your friends, like, that's like not necessarily the healthiest, but it's fun. And it's like, we need to do things like that sometimes. However, things like gambling, it's almost like, it's just purely an addiction and you don't even gain anything from it. You're not gaining the social, emotional side of it. You're just lose in all areas with some things. That's kind of why it depends what you're doing. I guess, like, are you gaining anything from it? But yeah, I guess overall, to the question of like, can people live without vices? I think personally, long term, I doubt it. I don't know. I think it doesn't necessarily give you the overall super healthy life that you think it will give you. I think personally, sometimes it's healthier to let loose every now and then and do something a bit silly and a bit fun, as long as you're like generally looking after yourself and the people around you and you're not being a twat. Do you know what I mean? Because I think a well-rounded, healthy, happy life comes with joy and it comes with letting loose. It comes with making silly decisions. It comes with being stressed and ordering the expensive shoes that you've had in your basket for ages that you probably shouldn't have fucking bought, but you had a bad day and you're like, fuck it. Every now and then, things like that, they do help. And I think you need to do things like that every now and then. You can't be sensible 24/7. However, that's what I mean. It's joy, it's fun. You're not really harming anyone, but it's probably not the smart thing to do. That I kind of support every now and then. However, it depends how destructive it is. It's really a fucking nuanced conversation, right? Because I think a lot of people do think when you talk about vices, about like severely abusing alcohol or like drugs and things and like fucking your life up. But I personally don't think that's necessarily like a vice. Maybe it is by definition. I guess technically it's like an extreme vice, isn't it? Like you're not just letting loose and distracting, you're like fucking forgetting every ounce of responsibility. Like that that's kind of like an extreme vice, and that's not what I'm talking about. I wonder, to the person listening, could you think right now of what your vice is? What do you normally do that's probably not the healthiest thing? Maybe you're not the proudest of it, because I would be interested if anyone watching this is like, yeah, I don't have one at all. Because I probably think if I asked everyone in my life, they'd be like, probably this. Obviously, again, it's a spectrum. Some people more so than others. Some people it's like a problem, but some people it's more of like when I like have a bad day, I always have a drink. And like that, to me, is what I class as a vice. It's like, it's shit for you, but it's killing you. But then it's also like long term, that's not good. Like it's such a nuanced fucking thing. But I don't know. I guess let me know when you're people watching this. What do you think? Do you think it's worth striving for a vice-free life? Do you think you have any vices? You don't have to tell me what they are, but I'm curious, like I said, if anyone watching this is like, yeah, I don't have one. Do you think it's the human condition? Because I think I do overall think it's human. I think it's very nuanced though, and it's very situational, But yeah, let me know. I'm very interested in your thoughts, and I need to go because I need to get 2 of my nails fixed that I've snapped. But yeah, thank you for listening, and I will talk to you soon.